Hello, everybody. Thank you for being with us. I am Denise Smith of Our Metaverse. Metta, spelled with two T's, means loving kindness. It's kind of a discussion to really pay attention to, not meta, but metta, loving kindness. So we're a community coming together through loving kindness to develop our compassion and wisdom and to share our common humanity together. We meet online once a week. Everybody is welcome. We are a by donation community. If you would like to learn any more about that, please do see us online on YouTube/Our Metaverse, that we do have some recorded classes there. Or you can email us for any more questions at ourmetaverse@gmail.com. Tonight, I'm very excited to have Venerable Robina back with us. I'd like to tell you a little bit about her first. She is a Buddhist nun in the Tibetan Buddhist Gelugpa tradition, in the lineage of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Venerable was raised Catholic and was interested in becoming a Carmelite nun in her youth. She became a feminine activist and worked on behalf of prisoners' rights in the early 1970s. In 1976, she took a course by Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa in Queensland, Australia, her home country. The lure of the teachings and the two special teachers helped her decide to become ordained as a Buddhist nun in 1978. In 1996, she founded the Liberation Prison Project, which she ran until 2009. She was the editorial director of Wisdom Publications and Mandala Magazine. She is the developer of the Liberation Prison Project, and her work has been featured in two documentary films, On the Road Home, as well as a documentary about her life and her work with death row inmates, which was nominated for Best Direction in a Documentary. And on the Australian Film Institute, that movie is called Chasing Buddha. She comes to us by donation. Everyone is welcome, donation or not. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Venerable.
Thanks for having me, dearest Denise. Happy to be here, everybody. So yeah, so let's start. We'll start with a little motivation. The Tibetans would say, "Set your motivation." I mean, I think we'd say, "State our purpose for being here together," because this is very much to do with the ethics we're about to discuss. It's that what goes on in our mind, what motivates what we do, what motivates our actions is the key factor. I'll go into this. So we just think we're going to listen to these words, these teachings from the Buddha, and if there's anything that's useful, we'll take it on board and incorporate it into our lives, so that we can become more happy and fulfilled, so that we can be a benefit to others. It's simple. And our prayer kind of expresses that. I'll sing it in Tibetan. Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru dagni kyabsu chi dagi chonyen gi personam ki rola penche sangye drupa shok sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru dagni kyabsu chi Dagi chonyen gi personam ki rola penche sangye drupa shog sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru ragni kyapsu chi dagi chonyen gi personam ki rola penche sangye drupa shog. So yeah, one of the things we discussed the weekend it was in San Jose where Denise was. We were there. Was looking, and I think it's really important. This is a really important point to me. If we like Buddhism, it's really important to see some fundamental differences that actually, when you understand them, become the basis for how you practice, how you incorporate it. So when it comes to ethics, and of course, when you talk about the Buddhist view, would use the view of karma. Yeah, that's right. We'll get to the point. The view of karma, which is fundamental to the whole Buddhist view. Many people who like Buddhism don't even think much about karma, but it's a hugely important viewpoint from the Buddhist perspective, that it's the basis, actually, of the Buddhist view of the entire universe. The way the mind works, this law of karma, is that everything we think and do and say basically programs us, or Buddha would say, put seeds in our mind, and then they ripen in the future as who we are, and as indeed as our experiences. So as the Dalai Lama would often say, karma is like self-creation. So the major difference, I would say, between Buddhism and the other, the religious philosophies that are the big ones in the world, Christianity, Islam, and even Hinduism, which also talks about karma, but still there's this view, they assert a creator. They assert one person who runs the show, who creates the universe, who is the source of the universe. And then, of course, the view we tend to have, if we're, like I was brought up a Catholic, that what ethics is, what morality is what God says. And there's something wrong. If you have a view of a creator and you do God's will, you'll live a good life, no problem. But I think that's the view we tend to have of what ethics is. We don't analyze it. I mean, so then, this is what Denise mentioned before, this Jesuit priest friend of mine, I asked him, I said, how do Christians define a sin, meaning an action that's immoral, immorality, in other words, or bad ethics? How do you why is an action wrong? And I think we all should ask this question, why is something wrong? Well, he said the main reason negative actions or sins is because God said. And that makes sense. If you think there's a creator, it makes complete sense. The creator is the boss. Of course it is. He runs the show, and he's usually called he. He makes the rules, he makes you, he makes the universe, and he runs the show. And we all know that this whole concept it's fundamental to that view is the concept of punishment and reward. So you do God's will and you get rewarded, and you don't do God's will, you get punished. So that's the view. And that's a hugely important point. So I think because we assume that most of us, like in our modern world, let's say in this country or Australia, we've come from, say, a Jewish or Christian background, and this is a given. This is a total given for us. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and if you do this, you're a naughty girl and you'll be punished. That's our view, and I think even if we're materialists, even if we're not religious, that's the view we have. It's very instinctive in us. We don't really analyze it, and we should. So in other words, mummy says do this, and if you don't do it, you're naughty. The judge says this, the police say that, the laws of the country say this, and if you're naughty, if you don't do it, you get caught. Or you do the naughty thing, you get punished. That's a very strong view in our minds, And I think even if we analyze how we feel, so as little children, we instantly feel that. We feel that, we're naughty, and you immediately wonder if mummy saw you do it. It's very instinctive. We don't need to be taught by this. Taught this, because the Buddha's view is this is a very strong impulse of the way ego works. It's this dualistic view of, punishment and reward. But from the Buddhist perspective, it's quite artificial. And because this is the point, because Buddha is not a creator. This is a hugely important point. Buddha would assert there's no such thing as a creator. He says it's a mistake. He's not being rude. That's from his own analysis, his own observation, according to his view, which is coming from his experience. And this is the other point about Buddhism. We maybe talked about this already, which is again reinforcing this view. There's no creator. Therefore, there's no punishment and reward. Therefore, something is not wrong or right because someone said. Is this whole view of always quote this experience, and it's very in New Zealand years ago. A man who happened to be a scientist who was in the class. He asked the question, who revealed these teachings to the Buddha, which of course comes from the assumption that we all have, as Buddhism is kind of so-called religious philosophy, it comes from on high. It comes from a creator. And that's again the view that we all tend to have. So that the shocking part for us in our culture, I think, and certainly if you're a Christian or a Muslim, it sounds shocking that there's no such concept in Buddhism. So the revelation, I mean, there could be great yogis have revelation in their meditations. Maybe they have more subtle minds. They can maybe experience the Buddha and whatever. But the whole idea of all the laws of the world that we call God's laws, or the information about Christianity comes from on high. It's not like that. The Buddha is not a creator. So in answer to his question, I said, would you ask Einstein who revealed the teachings about relativity, for example, to him? And of course we all laughed, because of course we wouldn't, because we know that Buddha is this Einstein. This is the scientific approach. He used his own intelligence, observed the world, and came up with his own findings and presents them. That is Buddha. It's a surprise to us because he talks about reincarnation, he talks about the mind going from the past into the future, all these things which sound like, which we assume you can't prove. But this is where you've got to really understand where Buddhism came from, these genius Indians more than 3,000 years ago. As the Dalai Lama says, they're the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self. And they developed this incredibly sophisticated, ingenious skill that enables you to go to the subtle level of mind where that we don't even posit in the West, you know. Neuroscience doesn't talk about it. Science, other teachings don't talk about it. Maybe just make sure you're on mute, everybody, just in case. Yeah, it looks like one is there. Anyway, so this is all implying, so Buddhism is coming from the Buddha, his observation, he's not made it up, he doesn't create it, he's not presenting it and says you must do it, which is how we think of religion, and certainly that you have to prove it for yourself. That's the point. Why? Because he is saying basically that the way we see the world now, and we have a series of misconceptions in our mind that cause us to be unethical, that cause us to harm others, and therefore make a mess of our lives, and therefore produce our own future suffering. And he's found methods where we can give that up. It's in his teachings called the Four Noble Truths, so that we can develop ourselves into this marvelous person who is happy and fulfilled and joy, you know, and clear and wise and compassionate. So so again too, if you say that, you know, as a Christian, you would never talk about proving that God is right. You can't do that. It's not possible. If you can prove that God is right, then you are equal to God. And that's the worst thing in Christianity. You couldn't say that. Whereas the Buddha would say every being has the same potential. We don't need creating. And this law of karma is this law that runs our minds. No one runs it. This is something he's observed. And that we all abide by the laws of karma. So the Buddhist approach of ethics, then, on the other hand, can sound just like Jesus. Jesus got a little list of 10 don'ts. Well, so is Buddha, you know. Don't kill, don't steal, don't jump on the wrong partner, don't this, don't that. And it sounds very similar, and we hear it in the same way. But the fundamental difference, so back to Jesus, if you ask Jesus why is killing wrong, he will say because God said. It's not, you know, it's against God's will. The priest said there's some aspect of natural law involved in its being wrong. In other words, people don't like getting killed. But the main reason it's wrong is because God said, and that fits with the creative religion. But Buddhism is not that. So then you ask the Buddha, if that's the case, why does he also say not kill? And he says, how you define like the heaviest of the negative actions, which are ones that it's an action that harms another. That's what defines it as a negative action. And he says, and the reason it's wrong is because people don't like getting killed. And he says it's natural law. Now, that really seems to me very common sense, you know. An action is negative because it harms another. The heaviest negative action is the one you do with your body or your speech that harms another. And why it is wrong is because people don't like getting killed. People don't like being lied to. People don't like being harmed. I mean, it's really down to earth, isn't it? And I think we can't disagree with that. Now, the other crucial point, though, is, so, you know, Denise might punch me in the nose, or no, Denise might punch me in the nose, let's say, but that's from that we can in general define punching in the nose as a negative action. We could do that, but as for whether, and I could have got hurt, but as for whether Denise from her side created a negative action, that's another discussion, and that's the really important point to distinguish, you know. So that's where we talk about creating karma. So the Buddha's idea about karma, and again, he's observed this, the Hindus before him observed it, it's a natural law, is that there are trillions and trillions of minds, consciousnesses, and they're not physical. They don't come from mummy and daddy. They are not a function of the brain. They do not come from such a thing as a creator, no such concept. And this is, again, the radical difference in the Buddhist view, is that we don't just begin in our mother's womb. If you're a Christian or a Muslim or a materialist, you at least share one view that you began in your mother's womb, you know, and before that there was no you. I mean, Christians say you go back to God. God put the soul in there. And if you're a materialist, you go back to mummy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, and the monkeys, That's how and then we know they're the views. So there's no Robina before Robina. But the Buddhist view is, and this is, again, the radical difference in the Buddhist view, but comparing both of the materialist and the creator religions, says that your consciousness, which is not physical, and of course you can't prove this immediately, well, nor can you prove E equals MC squared immediately. You take it as your hypothesis. But this is the Buddhist view, is that your mind, your consciousness is not physical. It's conjoined with this body. And if and they use these different terms in Buddhist psychology. They say your mind is like this mental continuum, this kind of continuity of mental moments. I think it was like a chain of mental moments, or a river of mental moments, And this moment of your consciousness, your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, where does it come from? The previous second. And where does that come from? The previous second. And where does that come from? So you can track it back this way, all the way to the first second of conception. We can imagine that. So then, of course, the second before conception, we know the egg was in mummy's body and the sperm was in daddy's body, but where was your consciousness? Well, it's got its own continuity of mental moments, this unbroken chain of mental moments. So it naturally tracks itself back, obviously at a more subtle level, to a previous moment of consciousness. And the Buddhist view is not more than a few weeks before that. It was in a previous body. And there's it's extensive in all the literature. It's all there, So then the law that runs this mind of ours is this, they call it the law of karma. I don't know what the word means. I've heard it means action or something. It's Sanskrit. But basically, you could say, every millisecond of what we think and do and say, every millisecond of what we think and do and say is the very process that produces the person we become, moment by moment. Every second we do say and think something, we sow seeds in our mind. Seeds, they won't ripen immediately, they'll ripen in the future. But every second of what we think and do and say, this is the process that produces our future. In the same way Buddha always uses the analogy of seeds. You put seeds in the ground, they will ripen in the future, as flowers and weeds and herbs, whatever, So we, in this simple sense, we are our own creator, which is a very shocking view that doesn't come naturally to us, and we really don't think like this, So to really take this on board is quite, and this is the essence of being a Buddhist. You take this one on board, which of course implies equally, if everything you think and do and say now produces the you of the future, then by definition, everything you are now is the fruit of your past. It's obvious. Which is, I find it about the best view I've ever come up with. I think it's great. Because what it means, what it implies, is that what's in my mind is mine. And who put it there? Me. Not mummy and daddy. That's the weirdest idea for the Buddha. It doesn't mean that what mummy and daddy didn't have an effect. But the view in the materialist view that they literally give you love and give you hate and give you psychosis and give you being good at music or football, there's no such. Buddha finds this the wackiest thing he's ever heard. Of course he doesn't talk like that. I'm just kind of talking, It's very strange, that view for the Buddha. And equally, there can be a creator who can literally make you. This is kind of not on for the Buddha. So the Buddha's idea is then there are trillions of minds, and they all go back and back and back and back and back, and they will go forward, 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 forward. In fact, minds, and this is mind-boggling, it makes no sense to us, are beginningless and endless. So then there's 4 ways. This is the essence of ethics in Buddhism. So let's get back to the one of Denise. Well, I'll do this one now. She punched me in the nose. I did get harmed. Theoretically, in general, that was a negative action. But whether Denise created a negative action, let's look at what it is that determines whether she created a negative action, or a good action for that matter, Even a simpler example than that punch would be, let's say, I'm homeless. Let's say Denise is homeless. And so an action called giving, generosity, I think in general we'd say that's a good action, because that's one that benefits another. That's clear. That's the definition of a good action, a positive action, a virtuous action, one that benefits another. So, okay, what determines then when I do that action of generosity? In general, we can say it's an action that benefits Denise, definitely. Now, let's look at whether I created virtuous karma equally. So, in order for that action that I do, of, let's say, giving $20, that's the name of the action, an action of generosity, we can in general say generally speaking, that is a virtuous action, in the same way that generally speaking, punching in the nose is a negative action. I think we can agree with that. One harms another and one benefits the other. We can say, now, as to whether I create that virtuous action, let's look at it. So there are 4 things in place in order for that action of generosity on my part to be a complete action, as they call it, which will drop a seed into my bank vault and then ripen in the future in 4 ways. There's 4 ways karma ripens. 4 ways. One is a type of rebirth. Now, the second is, within that rebirth, the type of mind you have, your mental tendencies, quite literally. 3, the third one is called experience. So that's first one is the fully ripened result, which is a type of rebirth. The second one is the tendency or the habit to keep doing that action. Pretty simple. In this case, generosity. The third is the experience similar to the cause. It'll happen to you. People will be generous to me in turn. And 4, even the environmental result. This is quite subtle, and it's all described in the literature. Even our actions, mental, physical, and verbal actions, program our mind and can even impact upon the physical world. That's another whole discussion. So then let's just say, here's me. One, that in order for that action to be a complete action of generosity, obviously generosity implies a person to receive the $20. So there has to be a person there, in this case, Denise. That's there. Tick the box. Second, this is the crucial piece now. My mind needs to be involved in it. This is the real one about karma. It's the first level of karma is mental action, the mind, intention, the thought, not motivation, but I will. That has to be there. So there has to be the intention, I will give $20. And then second part of that one is the mind, is the virtuous motivation, positive motivation, like kindness or generosity or compassion for Denise, let's say. So that's the second part, the mind involved, and that's the crucial piece. 3, you do the action. I hand over the $20, And 4, she gets the result. She's happy. She's got $20. Simply speaking, you could say that's a complete action of generosity. Now, let's say, and in that case, I created a virtuous action of generosity and put a karmic seed into my main bank vault, which will then multiply and bring all those 4 kinds of results in the future. But now let's look at let's say I'm walking down the street and there's Denise. Then the second part, intention to give $20. There's no intention. I have no interest to give $20. Therefore, there can be no motivation. There can be no compassion. 3, $20 falls out of my pocket. 4, Denise is happy, gets $20. So she's happy, but I created 0 karma. Now, equally the same, you could have a mouse in your kitchen, 1, a sentient being, 2, intention, I will kill it, and then the motivation, anger or aversion or disgust. 3, you do the action. 4, a dead mouse. That's a complete action of killing. That'll ripen in the future as a suffering rebirth, the tendency to keep killing, the experience of being killed, and the environmental result of being sick and having ill health and so on and so forth. This is the point. This is a natural process. This is not punishment and not reward. There's no external person involved. It's very sort of experiential, It's quite subtle. It's amazing. Everything we think and do and say produces who we become. So the crucial point about whether you create negative karma, as they would say, is whether or not your mind is involved and the intensity of the motivation. So, you could have that, a third scenario. Let's say Denise has a mouse in her kitchen. I've got a mouse in my kitchen. And let's say Stacy has a mouse in her kitchen. Well, you don't say, the typical one. Or let's say even now making it a compassion. Let's say, okay, there's a mouse. Each of us has a mouse. Now, the second one, intention and motivation, the second part of the mind involved. Denise might intend to kill. She thinks, I must kill the mouse. Why? Because she's got compassion. She sees the mouse really suffering. Oh my God, I must kill the mouse because it's suffering. So her motivation is compassionate. 3, she does the action. 4, a dead mouse. You could argue the mouse definitely suffered. And even more the point here, which we'll discuss, is what type of rebirth it took. We never think that in our culture, and that's hers is a very particular discussion. We'll go into that. But let's say Stacy has a mouse in her kitchen, but She doesn't intend to kill it because she doesn't see it. Therefore, there's no motivation to kill it. Her foot goes on the mouse and the mouse is dead, but she never knows. So she's created zero negative karma, and her mouse might have suffered terribly. So the mind being involved is the really major point, the really crucial point. And then the quality of it. I mean, let's say I'm a typical one. Mine is the complete action of killing. I see the mouse. I have intention. I'm going to kill the mouse. Why? Because I think mice are disgusting. I kill it, and I'm happy when it's dead. That's a complete action of killing. But even then, it depends on the motivation. I mean, there's Denise killed a mouse. I killed a mouse, exactly the same. And Stacey did. Stacey created no karma because her mind is not involved. She didn't even see it. Denise, even though the mouse died, and maybe Denise's mouse suffered more than Stacey's and more than mine, so really she created them, she caused the most suffering, but because her mind was, she had a good motivation. But we need to look at this one. This is a big one we have in our culture. Everybody loves to kill their pets. We call it putting it down, putting it to sleep. God knows what we call it. Euthanasia, we give it a fancy Greek name. So we should look at this one. It's really important. It's a crucial one. Let's look at this one. So then, the commonest reason we kill our pets, maybe our mothers and fathers and husbands and children now, it's becoming more and more common, isn't it? It's really interesting in our cultures where we have, people have been given permission to kill themselves or kill, whatever, be involved. But it's a really interesting point for the Buddhist view. So what's going on here? So the main thing for the Buddhist view when it comes to killing is that consciousness continues. A mouse is a sentient being. The term in Buddhism is sentient being, and the Tibetan word is very nice. I prefer the direct translation, mind possessor. So we are mind possessors, dogs are mind possessors, ants are mind possessors. There are many that we don't even see, like ghosts and hell beings and gods, many, many types of beings according to the Buddhist view. So here we have, your pussycat. So there's Denise, or she had a mouse before, but now we'll call it a pussycat, her pet. So there's Denise's pussycat, and she sees the cat suffering, and it is suffering, no question. So she thinks, I must kill it, because her motivation is compassion, because she wants to stop the mouse's suffering, and the cat. So it's true. When she kills the cat, it's true, that suffering ended. But she, pretend she's not a Buddhist, whatever she is, I'm not sure. She's up to her to tell us. But, the Buddhist view is that consciousness of that cat will continue whether you like it or not. It's just the natural law. Minds come from before, and all minds will continue on and on and on, rebirth after rebirth after rebirth. The whole goal is to quit the rubbish and become an enlightened being, so you're out of the nonsense. But the point is that cat will be reborn. So in the Buddhist view, especially the Tibetan Buddhist view, there's very extensive teachings on the whole death process, how it works, and what's the best way to help your loved ones prepare for death. In fact, I edited Lama Zopa's book, and I really recommend it. It's very interesting. It's called How to Face Death Without Fear. It's published by Wisdom. And it's really a handbook. About 2/3 of the book is like different practices and sutras and prayers and mantras that you can do to help your loved ones, to help your pets. So as Lama Zopa says, death, if you want to help anyone in this life, this is not how we think in our life, in our world, that death is when they need you most. Because at death, as he says, it's when the death process starts, and they're very specific about it. It comes from the Tantrayana, the Vajrayana model. It's very detailed descriptions in the text of exactly how death occurs and what happens, the process, and blah, blah, blah. But when the death process starts, it's in that from the time your breath stops until the time your consciousness starts to cease, it's then that the karmic seed in your bank vault, put it like this, because nothing we ever say or do or think ever goes astray. We've got trillions of karmic seeds in our mind, programmed in our mind, if you like, consciousness. So the one that will determine our next life will be triggered at that time of death. And the crucial point is that, we've got lots of negative seeds in there from killing and harming and bad-mouthing and hurting other people, and we have lots of virtuous karmic seeds. Well, we want a virtuous one to be triggered because that will give us at least another decent human rebirth so we can keep on bopping on our spiritual path. So death is a really vital time, and there's huge attention put onto it, and especially in the Tibetan tradition, So this book I really recommend. It's very fascinating teachings in it, as well as all the practices, but how the death process works, what happens at the time of death, all these things, and the best way to help your loved one, including your pet, So the point is, Also, there's described in great detail in these teachings about death is a very fearful experience for most people, including the mouse, including the cat, from countless lifetimes, because we grasp terribly. Our main grasping, our main attachment is to this person. So we grasp tremendously fiercely at this person. And that's the reason we suffer so badly at death, is because of the fear, you know? Is because of that grasping. We don't want to let go. It's very intensive. And if the mind is very fearful at the time of death, then when the death process starts, that can trigger a negative seed. There's this natural relationship, you know, between the way ego works and fear and grasping, and that attracts a negative seed to be triggered. And you don't want that for your cat, because you want, I mean, if you're, you know, trying to be a nice Buddhist or something, you want, you know, you try to help your cat die peacefully. You'll say lots of mantras. You put it in a safe place. You keep it very peaceful, very quiet. Let it hear teachings. Let it hear the words. Let it hear the mantras. And in that way can help the mind be peaceful, and can also even attract the Buddhas, the holy beings, to be there to bless the mouse, you know, to bless your pussycat. But to decide to kill it, the simple reason in Buddhism is that it's not a cool thing to do isn't because you're a naughty girl. It's because we don't have enough wisdom. And the wisdom we're discussing here, I'm sorry to say, is clairvoyance. We don't have the wisdom, we're not confident that a virtuous seed in that cat's mind will be triggered at the time of the death. We just don't know. So it's playing Russian roulette with your cat, you know, and indeed with your grandmother and your mother and everybody else now the world is trying to, you know, give permission to kill. So it's a practical issue, not some moralistic thing. You're a naughty person, you shouldn't kill. I mean, you know, because we don't have the wisdom to know. So always the best way in Buddhism is to take care of the animal, take care of your grandmother, let it hear prayers, let it be peaceful, be loving, be patient, be kind, look after them, make them feel relaxed so their mind isn't freaked out. Because, I mean, death is a very fearful, and so many people have nobody to help them at death. It's so sad, you know. So this is the one more than just the point I'm making, that what ethics is in general, we can list very clearly in Buddhism, a negative action is one that harms another, the heaviest one. But what makes it negative karma when we do it isn't the mere doing of it. It's the intention to do it. I will kill the cat, and the motivation. And the stronger the negative motivation, let's say you hate mice, let's say you're sadistic and you want the mouse to suffer. It's obvious the karma you create is so much more heavy because you're so happy to harm somebody. Whereas you might just you might just have the slightest aversion to the mouse, or might be accidentally kill it or something. So the motivation behind the intention to do things is what determines the negativity or the positivity of that action, you know. So these are the main factors in the Buddhist view of ethics. But to not kill because Buddha said is a meaningless idea. That for the Buddha is like saying when your doctor says don't smoke, and you say, why not? And she says, because I say so. And if you smoke, I'll give you cancer. We would laugh at that. But that's the view we have of morality, isn't it? I mean, the Buddha would say it's very kind of infantile, and that's why we don't want to get away with it. So, like, if you really believe cancer is punishment, when you go home and you see, oh, look, my doctor's not here, out come the Marlboros, I won't get cancer because she doesn't see me. That's how we think about morality. We think, oh, I got away with it, no one caught me. I mean, but when the Buddha, that's such an infantile, ridiculous thing. The Buddha's view is negativity and positivity are within the mind. No one needs to see you do it. And that's a really powerful point about karma. You learn to take responsibility. You don't need to be judged. And I think if we look at this attachment we have to be seen as a good girl, if we do good actions, we damn well want to be praised for it, don't we? We can't just accept that we're a good girl. We want to be seen to be good. This is one of our major sufferings, you know. And then if we're criticized and seen to be bad, so it's very much based on attachment. But the Buddha's view, it's a natural law. And my mother used to say that, my Catholic mother, she'd say, virtue has its own rewards. That's exactly the Buddha's view about karma. So one of the key things, if you are liking the Buddha's view, this view causes you to become less neurotic, causes you to less crave other people's approval. You become much more independent. You take responsibility more, and you become less neurotic. It's very powerful, actually. I mean, I know that when I heard first the teachings about karma back in the 70s, I really thought that's what I'd been missing in my life. I think it's, but you've got to apply it, not just have a view of, because we think of it like punishment, but it's just meaningless to think of it as punishment. It's a natural law. And I think also I like to say this, and I think it's true. We know that, let's say, when it comes to being a cook or a musician or anything else, that everything that goes on in your mind is totally the most important thing, because that produces the musician, that produces the cook. But when it comes to morality, we don't think our mind plays any role at all. We're like ridiculous, you know. It's very interesting, that point. We know that to be a good cook or a good musician, you have to really focus on the clarity of your thoughts, and your actions have to be totally perfect every time in order to become a good cook. Well, we don't realize that when it comes to being a happy person and a suffering person. And that's the essence of Buddha's view. What he's giving is advice of how to become a happy person, simply speaking, and therefore how to help others. That's the simplest way to put it. His methodology is a methodology for what he calls it giving up suffering. Well, it's called becoming a happy person. So he says we are the main player in our becoming a happy person. And that's shocking to us in our culture. We do not think that for 1 second, you know. So it's a big leap for us, but we've already got to give it thought to see if there's logic to it, you know. It's a very powerful concept. Now you can ask me some questions. Come on. If you'd like.
So, Venerable, one thing that and thank you.
Yeah. Go.
One thing that I learned was that was different than what I had learned in my Christian upbringing, my Catholic upbringing, was this theory of study, contemplate, meditate, as this way of not going because somebody else told me so, but in a way to check, what do I think? How do I break open the truth that is coming from this position rather than on high?
No, I understand exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, because if you think of creating a musician, it's the same. You want to become a musician. You got to know you got to work hard. You got to find the right people and really engage in it. You can't just do it because someone says. It's so true. It's very experiential, and that's exactly the Buddhist point. And that's truly a good point. Of course, otherwise it's just empty words, isn't it? Being a good girl because someone says you're going to be a good girl, believing in something. I mean, that's the thing about. Yeah, I mean, you would not just say, I believe in mathematics and leave it there. You'd learn mathematics. You've got to internalize mathematics. You can get away with believing in mathematics because enough people can count. But, you know, in the end, you got to change your mind with the learning of mathematics. That transforms you into a mathematician. That's the Buddhist approach. Merely believing in something is just better than nothing, but it doesn't get you far. That's a really good point. That's what you're suggesting, isn't it?
We get stuck in the study part in America, I think, or in the Western world.
Oh, you mean merely the intellectual level, you meant?
Yeah, we don't go into the contemplate, well, what do I think about that? Or what if this were the situation? Or why would I meditate on that if I could just keep reading?
That's not the contemplating. That's not how it works. It's not like that. No, it's not like that. What it means is if you're studying math, you study it first, right? And you learn the theories, don't you? Well, the contemplating of math what do I think about it? The contemplating of math is making yourself learn it so that you can do it. It's not even like you're saying. It's not even like that. It's more fundamental. If you just merely study musical theory, you can do that and you can answer many questions about music, but you've got to internalize it. So the contemplating means internalizing. Thinking it through logically. This means this and this means that, and 1 + 1 is 2, therefore this. You make sense of it and then you internalize it with practice. So it's much more than merely what do I think about it. It's not that. That's still too objective. Do you see my point?
I thought that was more the meditate state.
No, I mean, the contemplating means yes, but that's just another level of it. The contemplating it, like you think, simple example, like you learn for the first time that 1 + 1 is 2. Right? So it's a theory, isn't it? Now you've got to go home and do your homework. So the classic approach in Buddhism, and that's what meditation is. The first thing you do is you sit down and you get focused, but you have to have the information. You've got to have it written down or something. You've got to know, and this is the contemplating part. You've heard it, it's on the paper. Now you've got to think it through first. Just First, contemplate. One, you got to know the meaning of one, the meaning of plus, the meaning of equals, the meaning of two. That's the contemplating part where it makes sense. Even as we're listening now, we're doing that. And then you go to a deeper level with concentration. Now you internalize it. And now you have the aha moment. Now I get it. Meditating is a more subtle level of contemplating. That's all. Where it becomes experiential. So when it comes to math, you keep doing it till you got it. On piano, you just keep practicing until it's second nature. So it's a very natural process. Yeah. Do you understand me?
I do, and I'm feeling like we read all the books so that we can tell everybody we read all the books.
Yeah,
So that we can have somebody else told me so that I'm smart because I read all those books.
I
But we
think
don't get to feel smart until we internalize it.
that's right. That's the big one. And that I think is a big danger in our culture because we are so intelligent. We're so brilliant intellectually, actually, and you can get very captivated because Buddhism certainly is a very captivating philosophy. And I mean, and it's so many universities in America, let's say, alone, you can study Buddhist philosophy very intensively. But it's very captivating, and the easier you can get captivated by the theories but not put it into practice. And that's the biggest danger. It's true. Yeah, absolutely. What else, people? Any questions? Yeah, Wendy. Hello, Wendy. Can't hear you, darling. Unmute. There we go. Gotcha.
There we go.
Yes.
I'm curious what you or Buddhist philosophy believes in terms of like negative self-talk turning into sort of physical ailments. Do you believe that like your mind can cause physical ailments?
Let me talk about it. It's very interesting. So the Tibetan. Okay, so the more esoteric teachings in Buddhism is very helpful in relation to this question. It's similar to the Ayurvedic system, the Chinese, the very ancient one we used to have in our culture, where they talk about you've got subtle energies, So the Tibetan medical system is completely based on this. I'll describe. So at the grosser level, they've got about gross, subtle, and very subtle levels of our energy. So the gross level is obvious. We've got gross consciousness, which is our sensory consciousness. And that's dependent upon the gross body. They've got to work together. Do you understand my point? So then we've got subtle, which is all our mental states, all our positive and negative mental states, all our endless thousands of thoughts and feelings and emotions. That's called mental consciousness. Now the subtle level, this is the Tibetan medical system, and it's the same as it's the Vajrayana system. We've got these 72,000 subtle channels, subtle nervous system basically, and coursing through all those channels, and then is okay. The way they say that this is the same as the ancient systems. The physical world is made up of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water, okay? And that's still totally working in this system here. So you've got the subtle nervous system and you've got the subtle wind energy or air energy coursing through all those channels, and all of those different wind energies are inextricably linked to all your different states of mind. So your Tibetan doctor will feel your pulses, and she'll feel an imbalance of certain wind energy which is out of whack, and then she knows it's related to your intense attachment going berserk energy because she knows you're having a panic attack. And so your mind's out of control. It upsets the wind energies, which is a subtle level, and that eventually impacts upon the external, which causes illness. Yes, exactly. In fact, but long-term as well, karmically as well. So you might have the karma to get cancer this life. That's the fruit of killing in like 22 lives ago. It mightn't be in this life.
Okay.
But even the way our mind is now, of course, if your mind's always anxious and you're always angry, that's completely polluting your subtle wind energies, which in turn impacts upon the gross body because they're inextricably linked. So very much so, yes. But not in the sense that, if I think I'll get cancer, I'll get cancer. No, that's superstitious. Not like that. It's the angry, negative thoughts, the negativity, the anxiety, the attachment, the jealousy, the neurosis. They're the negative states of mind that impact upon the subtle winds that then cause physical sickness at a grosser level. Absolutely. But for everybody in this life, it might be long term. Do you understand my point? But the mind have an inextricably intimate relationship. Absolutely. So equally practicing virtuous thoughts, practicing meditation, practicing positive thoughts, practicing mantra, holy words, that purifies your wind energies, which purifies your mind, which also purifies your wind, and you can heal yourself. The exact opposite, you see, at a very subtle level. definitely an intimate relationship. And future karma, healthy bodies in the future, if we've got a healthy body in this life, that's the fruit of not killing in past lives. If we've got, so it's long-term as well as short-term results.
Okay, because I always wonder, there's a lot of talk in our family about this right now, but we also have friends who, have died of cancer at a young age, or a child, family childhood
Sure.
child that's died of cancer. And I think like it's not her fault. She didn't know that. How is a child supposed to know how to have these positive thoughts, right?
Not so much. It's more okay. So it's short. It's more long term, Wendy. So
Okay.
the four karmic results of past killing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting a human body is the fruit of non-killing. So we got one of those, kind of like we won the lottery. One of our non-killing karmic seeds was triggered. We got a good human body. But we can look into most humans. You can see, can't you? There are the other three results that play out in our life. And we can see that they're from killing. So look at the millions of humans who kill, who have a tendency to kill. Would you agree with that? Ants, I mean, humans kill fish, kill each other. Some kill ants and cockroaches and rats. Some people don't kill. So the tendency to kill is from the habit of past killing. That's the first way. The second way that past killing can ripen in this life is you will get killed or die young. So look at all the people from the babies onwards who die.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yes.
You can have really good tendencies in this life, be a good pure person, no negativity, but you've got the karma called the experience, similar to the cause from past life. You get a human life, but you die when you're 3. And it's not negative. I mean, it's not judgmental. It's just karma playing out, So, and then another person can live till they're 74 and be the wickedest person on the planet. So way that karma ripens is environmental, and that the result of killing is to get unhealthy, have a very weak body. You get the food is polluted, the water's polluted, the air's polluted. That's the fruit of killing. And equally, a healthy person, even if they eat rubbish, they live till a long age. They've got no killing karma at all. So it's from many, many, many lifetimes, Wendy, not just this.
Okay.
Not
That
just
makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
It's good. Thank you. Who else, people? Anybody other questions?
Can you talk about purifying killing karma?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, you're sure. So, I mean, the very first level of practice in Buddhism, the way it's mapped out in the Tibetan tradition, the very first level even isn't about meditation yet. It's about controlling the body and the speech, harnessing the energy of our body and our speech. And so that's where the good behavior, good list, instructions about good ethics is involved. So that's the first level of practice. And so then when we first become a Buddhist, you might take refuge formally, and then along with that, you take the 5 layperson's vows. So there's 2 practices that are said to be very powerful in this purification process, because there's no karma we can't change. We come into this life programmed with certain tendencies. Billions of karmic seeds are sitting there latent that haven't yet ripened and won't ripen in this life. So the whole idea is to get ahead of the game. So the very first level of practice, for example, you decide to take refuge. So you take refuge formally, and then the next part of it is you take the 5 layperson vows. Well, vows are said to be super powerful because, and this is in Buddhist teachings, they even say they're like a subtle physical energy visible to clairvoyance. There's something so potent about vows, because a vow, a vow is simply a strong decision, a conscious decision, very intentional, to refrain from something. And that kind of governs you. So I think it's sort of obvious. If you consciously decide, I will not eat much food today, I think you will that'll be there sitting on your shoulder when the cake appears. You will do what it says, because you're telling yourself, I will not eat much cake. So I think that we do that all the time. When you drive a car, you learn so many things you vow not to do, and you program your mind with that. That's a vow. So vowing not to kill It's said to be one of the most marvelous ones, because what it does is when you take that vow, it's in your mind stream, you purify it every day, you keep it every day. And so 24 hours a day, you're purifying the tendency to kill from past lives, preventing those seeds from ripening. And second, you're strongly purifying your mind even now. It's powerful. And then you don't kill every day, which then continues you not getting killing results in the future. Whereas it's only when you have a vow not to kill that it's really powerful. I mean, here we all are sitting here this evening. Most of us have this second of not killing anybody, because the mind's not involved, is it? There's no sentient being in front of us, and there's no thought, I will not kill. So remember I said before, for karma to be created, you've got to have the thought, I will not kill. But if you take vows not to kill, the Buddha would say that vows are so powerful, they purify your mind, and you're ticking over virtuous karmic seeds 24 hours a day. That's just by living in vows, And I think psychologically that makes sense somehow. And then the other one is we have a practice at the end of every day. As Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do it every day. It is, again, this very intentional kind of practice where we purify our negative karma. And it's all the mind. As Lama Yeshe says, we create negativity with the mind. So we purify negativity with the mind. It's not a question of being forgiven. We don't wait for someone to get us off the hook. You have to do the work. And that's the really powerful one, I think. If you're a Christian, because God made you, because God runs the show, you've got to rely on God to purify you when you confess, and then he forgives you. So forgiveness, this is why I think in our culture, forgiveness plays a tremendously powerful role, because you need to be forgiven by God in order to purify. But the Buddha would forgive you. He's a nice person. But it's not the point, It's just not the point. As purification is your own internal, powerful, intentional, conscious practice itself, because you are the boss. You are the one creating yourself. So again, this brings tremendous accountability, We think about it as the 4 R's. It's a good process. The first one is regret. So the commonest way we think of this is guilt. Oh, I killed last week, I did this, I did that, and I'm a bad person. And then we want to be forgiven, nothing to do with it. We've all done countless negative actions as far as the Buddha is concerned. We've got countless lives, So we just we kind of grow up, And then what regret means is really specific. It's like if you've got a tendency to get diabetes, I know it's not just sugar that causes it, but pretend it's sugar. Then when you eat sugar, the first thing is say, oh my God, I can't believe I ate sugar. What an idiot. I regret having done that because I don't want the future suffering. That's the basis of regret, because you take responsibility. You know that you're programming your mind with the negative actions, and you do not want that. You don't want to sow seeds in your mind because you don't want future suffering. So I think in our culture, we'd call this first step self-compassion. So you think, well, I did kill and I did do this. You remember some things you've done in this life, and then you say to yourself, this is you talking to yourself, I regret having done that, Robina. Why? Because I don't want those seeds to ripen. I want to purify these seeds. I want to put atomic bombs under these seeds. I do not want them to ripen in the future. So it's for your own benefit. This practice, you feel sad if you don't do it at the end of the day, I've got mine to do. It's like I'm 10 o'clock now. So after this, I'm going to do my purification practice and go to bed. I'll never not do it. I love doing it. It's very nice. So, because it's your mind that creates negativity, so your mind purifies. See, the regret is the first one. And then after a few remembering, you remember this and remember that. I always remember the abortion I had when I was 23. And I had been a Catholic. Then I was a hippie, and I had all this, I've got this baby come into my womb. I remember when it happened, I always tell this story. I was with this boy. I was a good hippie, I remember I knew that second that I was pregnant. It's very funny. I knew that second. I thought, oh my God, I'm pregnant. That minute in the bed with that boy, The next thought was, I'm going to have an abortion. I've never thought that before or since, but this is how karma plays out, okay? I like it as an example. So what happened is this. The condition arose, me and the boy, the sperm came and the egg came, and that's the condition for a consciousness to join it. And that's when the consciousness does join it. So this sentient being from the past, whom I had very strong karmic history with, they're sitting there having died recently. One of the virtuous karmic seeds of non-killing had been triggered, and it was a specific seed of history with me. It was going to get born in my personal womb. We've got history together. This person died. As soon as I jumped into bed with this boy, the condition arose and their consciousness came running and zapped into that egg and sperm, So that I had some strong history with that person. I always think of it as a she. So I knew I'd go and have an abortion. Very clear. So that's the karma of that person who came to my womb, from her having killed me. I would not have had that thought if she hadn't killed me. So karma is a very interdependent thing. It's very connected. We're very connected to each other, So she had the karma to be killed by me because she had killed me in the past, and she hadn't purified it. So I remember being in London. It was 1968. The National Health had just approved abortions to be part of the medical system, free. So I felt lucky. Wow, I'm getting an abortion. I didn't think of it as a person. I'd been a Catholic, but I didn't think it. And then I'll give him permission. I was in the hospital. Then I basically gave permission to the doctors and nurses to have this, abort this baby. And the poor thing, they didn't cut it out properly. They had to cut it out again. So she suffered terribly. That's the Buddhist view, So I always think of that action. I did it. She created the cause, but I did it. We're in this karma together. So I always regret that action because, it sowed a seed in my mind. My motivation wasn't anger. I just didn't want a baby, So the karmic seed was there, growing along. So I regret it every time. So I'm purifying that karmic seed. And I regret it. Why? Because I don't want to be killed in the future. Thank you very much. Which is true. I don't. So that's the approach of regret. It's like very wholesome. It's very kind of a sense of responsibility, not guilt, not I'm a bad person, not, oh, I shouldn't have done that. All that's neurotic, It's very reasonable. And so in the same way, I always use the example, we are incredible, aren't we, about nutrition these days. We look at every damn piece, every label, every tiny, and there's no way on the planet we're going to eat some food if it will cause us suffering. That's the approach of karma. You really get the sense of responsibility. You don't want future suffering, so you stop causing it, And then you do this purification every day where you purify it. So the first step is regret. Then you think, well, whom can I turn to? Where's my doctor? And that's probably the best way to talk about our relationship with the Buddha, not a creator. He's advising us. We have chosen to take his advice. So we have this, we've got a particular practice. We visualize the Buddha above our head and we take refuge. We delight we've got a doctor. But the second part of the second step is now you have compassion for those you've harmed. So then I have compassion for the baby I aborted. Due to their negativity, they created the cause to get killed. They suffered terribly, whatever. And you have compassion for anyone you've harmed. And also, if you can have compassion for those who've harmed you, that's pretty powerful. Why would you have compassion for a harmer? Because they will suffer in the future. That's the real basis of compassion in Buddhism. Because the Buddha says we're all in the same boat, harming and being harmed, life after life, and then forgetting it, and then blaming each other, So then the third step is you do the practice. We visualize. We have this visualization. We recite a mantra, and we use our mind to imagine purifying, And it's your mind that purifies. It's nothing special. It's nothing extra. Buddha doesn't do it. You visualize the Buddha. He's not purifying you. You're visualizing. That's all. You're using Buddha. And the fourth step, and you say a mantra, and the fourth step, resolve to change. You determine, so you reiterate your vows. I will never kill. I will never steal. I will never lie. You strengthen your vows and then the other actions, and then you go to bed with a happy mind. I like it very much, this practice. And also it's completely based on the view of karma, which is you are the one who harms yourself and you are the one who purifies yourself. We rely upon the Buddha. And of course, and this is the thing, even though we don't have a creator, in Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhists, there's incredible devotion. You develop this real devotion in the Buddha, but also you develop a real relationship with spiritual teachers, and they're sort of like the Buddha for you. That's what the word Lama means. That's what the word guru means, a person in human form whom you consider like the embodiment of Buddha for you, and you develop devotion and faith in that person. I do more prayers and more devotional practices now than I ever did as a Catholic, and I was a pretty devoted Catholic. Anyway, just chatting away here. Any questions? We have 27 minutes left. Questions? Anything at all? Huh? Anything? Something? Nothing? What else, Jane? Come on then, Denise. What else shall I talk about? I always like reading the news about the Catholic Church and reading about the Pope and everything. I'll be following it. But it's interesting. All my sisters, there are 7 of us in the family, they've all given up God. My brother and all my sisters, they've all given up And my particular sister, Judy, she was a chiropractor, and then she became a lawyer at the age of like 65. She's now 75. And she runs a very successful law company. Since she got old, about 25 lawyers working full time, and she's supporting the victims of the Catholic Church. So it's not what we're going to discuss.
Wow.
So that's a very interesting one.
Very.
Super
Anyway,
interesting.
I know that's a bit sad, all that part, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
Is that
And my intention in mentioning that was to kind of highlight the difference in Christianity relying on somebody outside of us to guide us, Buddhism relying on somebody inside of us to guide us. But I wanted to let people know that we will be talking about not just Buddhism.
But
There are some ways that we have been trained for so long.
I think, Denise, I have to add, though, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you.
Okay,
Of course, you rely on the outside. You rely on listening to teachings. You rely on the Buddha. You rely on your teacher. You listen to the teachings. But you're not created by somebody else, and you're not relying upon somebody to forgive you and reward you or blame you or punish you. That's the difference.
wonderful.
Buddha's an outside person. I'm an outside person, and I'm talking here. If you teach somebody, you're an outside person. So in that simple way, of course, that's not the difference at all. Do
Oh, that's great.
you understand?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Same, exactly the same. We rely tremendously on the Buddhist. I mean, how can I possibly learn carpentry if I don't have a carpenter? So how can I learn Buddhism without a Buddhist teacher? That's the outside. But you become but the difference is the way we often, and I, again, not criticizing Christianity. I was a very devoted Catholic. But the Christian view can be that we kind of give our responsibility off to God. Whereas here, you understand, so and strength and believing that faith, certainly some Catholics, some Christians. I mean, what is your path, Justin? I'm not quite sure. Justin's my friend there. He's been a devoted Christian. What kind of Christian are or were you?
I'm an Episcopalian now, and I was raised as an evangelical Christian and a Pentecostal.
So what's the point there? Faith.
Faith, sure. Getting to know the Tibetan people, they think of Vajrasattva and Chenrezig as very real. It's very personal kind of deification of these entities that purify them and cleanse them of their wrongs. And
no, that's a mistake, Justin. They do not purify. Like I said before, forgive me, I'm not trying to argue. Well, I am arguing with you. No, that's not the way we think of the Buddha. That all these different manifestations of the Buddha mind, billions of them, as you know, if you've been to the Tibetan Buddhist centers, but they are all Buddha, and you use them, visualizing them, but mind does the purification. The Buddha does not do the purifying, but you're visualizing. It's like you visualize Jesus purifying you, but you're just visualizing it. You're using the Buddha. That's my point. Do you see my point?
Yeah, absolutely. By talking with them, I didn't feel that they had that kind of awareness, and I thought that was one piece of the pie that they were missing.
They do, but no, Justin, please forgive me. They mightn't be able to articulate, or there might be some of them have studied philosophy, but they don't have a view of a creator. That's all. There's no view of a creator who made you, who punishes and rewards. Of course, you visualize the Buddha and you have faith in the Buddha and you think the Buddha does purify you. But if you analyze it, it's your mind doing it. And if you're highly advanced, of course, Buddha, you'll see the Buddha, you know. I understand your point. I understand. But never mind. But go on. Continue what you're saying.
And I think the Christians I've met, especially the monastic Christians, do visualize Jesus and realize that this is kind of a tantra of thinking of the blood of Jesus purifying.
No, I'm sure that's true. I think there's an esoteric level of all religions that are really very similar. I mean, I know the Dalai Lama had amazing meetings with all kinds of these Catholics who just, I mean, I remember in Spain one time when the Dalai Lama was there, the Dalai Lama, and he visited this Catholic Carthusian monks who pray day and night. I wasn't allowed in because I was a girl, but they had incredible conversations and they were in bliss talking to the Dalai Lama about the meaning of the air. So I think in so many ways, many religions are similar in that sense. It's true. But you are an Episcopalian now, are you?
I go there sing in the choir, but I work with like Taizé is like the contemplative Christianity. It's out of Taizé, France. It's a ecumenical Christian meditative group that kind of spawned in the world, singing and sitting.
Okay.
The Christians are ready to evolve. The Episcopal Church is very much ready to evolve. They see Jesus not as a deity, but as a person who really did this amazing work on the planet.
I see, yeah.
Very much changing. It's evolving, and Buddhism has.
But I think it's always been that way. There's always been levels and levels. The same in Buddhism. You can get very fundamentalist Buddhists and very advanced spiritual beings. I think it's a question of consciousness, isn't it? Levels of consciousness. I think so. Yeah. But you have faith in a creator. I thought you'd become a Buddhist.
I am Buddhist in that regard. I don't believe creator deity.
Oh, okay. I see. I understand.
I'm self-made as a conscious being.
Oh, I see, Justin. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, darling. Thank you. So anyway, there you go. There's some Christianity for you, Wendy. But I thought that Pope was a good man. I don't know. I mean, my sister Judy was never happy with anything the Catholics did, because I mean, the Catholics were pretty wicked, all those naughty men with their ridiculous penises and children. I mean, it's like outrageous. But I suppose the worst part of that for me was, I mean, it's human nature, but the worst part of the church supporting them, hiding it, that was the worst part, I think. The really criminal part was that, I think. It's very distressing. Anyway, whatever. So go on, people. What other questions are there? Any things to talk about before we finish? Or continue. Let's just continue. I mean, we can talk about karma till the cows come home, but you have to ask me some questions. Yes, Stacey.
Venerable Robina, thanks for coming back again. I'm just curious about the purification process. Is the 4 R's, that was a separate thing, right? So is the purification process something different than meditation that you want to go into?
Well, I mean, okay, meditation is really used in a very broad way. And we have many kinds of meditations, So there's really in Buddhism, there's 2 main ways of meditating. There's just precisely 2. The first one is what the world vaguely knows as meditation and is often referred to as mindfulness. But actually in the Buddhist tradition, it came from the Hindus, and it's this very sophisticated psychological skill these genius Indians invented that enables you to get what they call single-pointed concentration, which means you get to this very, very subtle level of mind that we don't even posit as existing, you understand, in the modern world. And that's the genius of these Indians. So that's the first one. It's called single-pointed concentration. And you can't even imagine the levels of subtlety and the way they describe the mind, of the levels of brilliance and clarity that we can cultivate. There's a whole different kettle of fish when we describe the mind. So that concentration meditation is the first mode. And lots of people, you can just do that simply. You learn to focus on one thing, to steady the mind, Then the second mode of meditation, there are hundreds of kinds of meditation, and that includes visualization, that includes thinking things through logically. It's all kinds, and that's more proactive type of using your mind, using the intellect, but with a focused mind. But visualizations are also there. We have lots of visualization meditations using the different manifestations of the Buddhas, So the purification practice is one of those meditations. It consists of these 4 steps. So the first, you sit down. You do your focus first, get your mind focused. Then you go through this process in your own mind. There are more formal ways, but it's a very personal thing. So you start to think of the things you've done wrong. And then you think, I did this and did that and did this and did that, this life today. And then you say, and I regret having done that. You're talking to yourself, because I don't want those habits to continue. I don't want that kind of suffering for myself. It's a very precise approach. Do you understand me?
Mm-hmm.
Take responsibility for having done it, not guilt, not blame, not negative, but it's very positive, very kind of uplifting. It's like compassion for yourself. And then you think, well, whom can I turn to? And that's the first one. The R is the regret. The second one is reliance. The second one here now, as Justin pointed out, we visualize a particular way. There's many Buddhas. Buddha means like enlightened mind, but there's many manifestations in different forms, male, female, all kinds of Buddhas, all just manifestations of the same Buddha energy. Do you understand? So we visualize this particular Buddha above our crown. And this is the second one called reliance. So we sort of delight, we have a formal prayer where we call it taking refuge. We delight that we've got this Buddha who's that's what I want to say, he's not our creator. He's not technically purifying, although we think like that, Justin. It's right, you're right. But we visualize the Buddha above our head. That's reliance. And in the second part, they talk about it as reliance on sentient beings, suffering beings. But they mean, this is where we have compassion for others, the ones we've harmed. the second part, in this second step called reliance. You think now about those you've harmed, the baby I aborted, the beings I might have killed, the boyfriends I cheated on, the people I've stolen from, the people I badmouthed. You think of certain things today, this day, yesterday, and then this life. And then you can also think, if you have the view of karma, and whatever I've done since beginningless time to harm sentient beings with my body and speech, I don't, I regret from the depths of my heart because I don't want the future suffering. This is the first step. Regret is so important. This is back to the first step. Back to the first step. Regret. So then in the second step, you take reliance, the Buddha, and now you think of those you've harmed. And you have you think, I'm going to purify for their sake as well, for all the compassion for those you've harmed. Do you understand me? And
Yes,
if
thank
you
you.
can, compassion for those who've harmed you, if we can, because they're going to suffer in the future for harming. So that's compassion. The third one is we have this vision. This is where we do, this is part of the meditation where we now visualize. And it can be very extensive or very simple. We visualize nectar coming from the Buddha, filling you completely. You say a certain mantra, which is Sanskrit. They really praise the Sanskrit sounds, it's very purifying, very holy. And you visualize, you're really using your creative imagination. You can visualize nectar coming from the Buddha, filling you completely and purifying every atom of all the negativity. We do things like that. Do you understand me? So it's very uplifting. And the thing is, it's your mind doing it. So it's your mind that purifies. That's the point, Justin. Even though we think the Buddha's purifying, but you're thinking it, so you're doing it. By the thinking of it, you're doing it. Do you understand my point? Justin.
I do, and I think that Christians just haven't been able to be honest about that. And
I see.
And say, well, you are wonderfully honest. That's why I follow you.
I understand, Justin. I know, darling. I understand. So then you visualize, and you can do that with a mantra. You can spend a long time, short time. We have a particular meditation where you visualize all the nectar filling you, purifying your body, purifying your speech, and then purifying your mind, and just saying this Sanskrit mantra. And then the fourth step, that's called a remedy. So regret, reliance, the remedy, and then resolve. And then you think to yourself, okay, and if you've taken vows, you'd say, I will never kill. You reiterate your killing vow. I will never kill. I will never steal. I will never lie. And then you sort of speak to yourself about your old habits. Okay, I won't badmouth a boyfriend for 24 hours. You kind of give yourself a timeline. You're kind of you're being accountable to yourself. Do you understand me?
Mm-hmm.
Then with another meditation we do at the end, you visualize the Buddha coming into you and you meditate on that. There's various ways of doing it. And it's a very nice way to finish the day. Kind of you're taking responsibility for stuff and you're purifying and feel like you're moving forward,
Okay. Thank you. Yes, thanks for going over that more.
Wonderful. So what else, people? What else? Anyone?
Well, I wanted to share my experience with Lama Zopa.
Oh yeah, good.
In that I just happened upon him at Land of Medicine Buddha. And
Right.
Dreamy, who was there at the time, was like, do you want to go see him? And I was like, what would I do? I don't even know what to do.
Right.
So we stood in this line and he blessed some animals and then he blessed there was only 20 of us or something there.
Uh-huh.
And so I actually didn't even have a kata. And so somebody lent me theirs from the front of the line and ran over and gave me it. And so I handed it to him and he handed it back to me and he looked at me and he just said, what's your name? And I said, Denise. And he goes, Denise. And then he went on to the next people. But 20 minutes later, when I was going to be taking a class with Venerable Steve, step 3 of visualizing nectar filling us and purifying every single part of my body was a real experience for me.
Really? My gosh.
It was unbelievable, the relief that I felt, like anything I'd ever done negatively had some type of forgiveness given to it.
Wow, amazing.
It was absolutely amazing. Yeah, that's the first time I've said that without crying.
So you're thinking that, you mean, so you were sitting in meditation or it just happened? After me.
I was just sitting in class listening to Venerable Steve teach me something.
Okay.
He's like, Denise, what's going on? And I go, some feeling is overwhelming me. And he goes, describe it. What's happening? I'm like, I just met Lama Zopa. I didn't expect it. Now I'm sitting here and I feel like all of a sudden, like all the things that I've done that were horrible in my life have been like relieved somehow. And Venerable Steve just looks at me and goes, Isn't it amazing?
So sweet. You're very fortunate. So you got some blessing. See, that's the thing you can say. See, this interesting point, isn't it, Justin? You can't argue that it didn't. I mean, it seems like it had something to do with Lama Zopa, and you could argue he kind of blessed you. But in a way, it's not wrong to say that. But also the Buddhist point is you are an equal participant in that. It couldn't have happened if you weren't ready for it. It couldn't have happened if you didn't have the karma for it to happen. You can't just be an innocent victim of these things. You're part of it. In the same way that fetus couldn't have been killed by me if there hadn't been the karma there. Do you see my point?
Yeah.
But the Buddha is external, that external blessings do occur and bad things occur too, but we are part of it. We're very much in it together. Whereas we often feel we're innocent victims of a blessing, like we're innocent victims of a bad action. We're not innocent victims. That was your karma. You created that from the past, and it ripened by meeting Lama Zopa. Do you understand me?
Yeah. It gave a really great goal of I will practice until I have the capability of doing that for somebody else.
That's a good goal, Denise. That's wonderful, darling. That's really nice, and I'm very happy to know that because he's one of my main teachers, Lama Zopa. They found his reincarnation. You heard that?
I did.
Yeah, that's right.
Dominique, welcome. And I'm inviting you for questions.
Who are you inviting? Where is it?
Dominique, can you see her?
Oh, okay. Dominique, good, darling. Talk. Talk, sweetheart.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm on my phone. I don't know. It's very difficult to figure out where the controls are on your cell phone. But I'm just grateful to listen in. It's my first time, and I've been meaning to come and learn with Denise for a long time. And finally found the space a couple minutes late, for which I apologize. But I'm grateful to, been able to listen in and learn with you.
Good, Dominique. I'm very happy. Is anything useful? That's great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no.
Good.
I have a diverse background, I guess. I was raised, I think,
Catholic?
Judaism, Catholic originally, yeah. And then met my husband who's from Israel, and we studied a lot together. I mean, there is a lot of links, of course, between Buddhism and I guess Judaism is a little bit closer on personal responsibility and but still, yeah, I mean, I feel much more comfortable in this kind of setting than in any of those, I guess.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know much about. I mean, I have to say, a lot of Jews these days. I know when I teach at our center in India, northern India, and sometimes in the center we have up in the mountains where the Dalai Lama lives, and there'll be these courses. This is the 90s, and sometimes 200 people, half of them would be Israelis. Half of them will be Israelis, and there are many, many Buddhists in Israel now. I don't know if you know that. Many.
Yeah.
Somehow, for some reason, Buddhism really attracts a lot of Israelis. So maybe that's
Mhm.
good. Maybe that's good for Israel, huh? Another couple of generations,
Yeah, maybe that we get it needs it for sure. Maybe that's it too.
Well, it needs something, that's for sure, doesn't it? Very interesting, Dominique. So you're not practicing Jewish. You just studied it with your husband, or you decide to become a Jew.
Well, this way. Well, no, we did. I mean, I officially converted. I guess our take on that was that. Um, what was our take on that? I mean, it gives sort of I think life is difficult. It gives some sort of a structure, I think, a flow to the year and to the seasons of life and so forth. To choose as a family, we have 3 children, right? To choose one sort of unified, I don't know, maybe more of a tradition. I think we both view it more as
That is interesting. That's the one that I find most Jews that I know talk in that way. It's a way to structure your life, to bring things into your life. I like that a lot. It's very nice. That's wonderful. You
yeah.
do. Really good. Well done. Thank you, sweetheart.
Thanks for letting me put you on
Sorry,
the
much more to say, Denise. I don't think we should finish now. Let's finish now, shall we?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for staying up late for us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. Thank you, everybody. So happy. We'll sing a little prayer to finish. So, taking the Buddha's view, we'll be sitting here for nearly an hour and a half, which means as many moments as there have been, as many thoughts as we've had, and none have gone astray. They've all gone into our mind. So, think of them as like seeds we planted. And let's make this aspiration. We're going to nourish these seeds, so that we can continue to grow our amazing potential, so we can be a benefit to others. Thinking like that, kind of dedicate. They call it dedicate. And the second little prayer, I'll sing two prayers. The second little one is just making the aspiration, this amazing kind of level of compassion to want to benefit others. May it grow and grow in the hearts of all. Gewadinyu dudag lama sange drugyurne drowa chikyang malupar Jai sala gopashok Jangchub semchog rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyuchig ke panyam pa me payang gong ne gong du pavasho. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for your
Thank
participation.
you.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Please come again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.
Good night, y'all.
Thank you.